How much more malicious could you have been? You killed 13 women.
You're wrong.
Do you think all women are prostitutes?
That's beginning to piss. If you're going to keep saying that, then I'm going to get up and leave.
I think you are a serial killer. I think you did kill these women. They need justice.
Captain, we're done.
You did kill them, didn't you?
Best known as host of Piers Morgan Live and as a judge on America's Got Talent for many seasons. Morgan is currently host and executive producer of a new crime series on Oxygen, Serial Killer with Piers Morgan. And guess what? The first episode takes him right here to Florida. Piers joins us more to tell us this morning. Hello.
Good morning.
All right, lots of questions for you this morning. Again, I'm not surprised the show starts right here, unfortunately, in Florida. But I have to be honest, I've been in this state many years. This is where I grew up. I was not all too familiar with this case. Enlighten us a little bit.
Well, there are two stories, actually, that I'm doing for the first two shows in this series. And the common theme is that these two men killed a lot of vulnerable young women. In different ways. One was a strangler and one used other methods, but they're both despicable, heinous serial killers. And they're both people who you just don't want to have anywhere near a female friend of yours, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, anyone. They are the most dangerous people I've ever been in a room with.
Well, and that's one of the first things that I noticed, because I love these type of crime shows and certainly as scary as they are, kind of trying to get inside their mind. You were awfully close to these gentlemen when you're interviewing them. I mean, was there thought in that and making sure that they're looking at you right straight in the eye? I mean, talk about how you wanted this done, and was there a reason for that?
Yeah, I wanted to be so close that they could, I could look them in the eye and I could see when they were lying. I could see them when they were beginning to sweat under interrogation. I could feel the kind of anger rising in them. I wanted to get that feeling close up so that I can work out as an interviewer really where I'm going with these people. They were very intimidating, very unpleasant, as you'd imagine. They're serial killers. And yet they also, of course, had an intelligence which allowed them to evade capture for a long period of time. And they also had a certain charm when they wanted to, which is how they were able to lure so many women to their deaths.
Well, and why did they want to speak with you? How did you get these gentlemen to actually agree to these interviews? I'd imagine that was not easy.
Well, like many people in prison, they protest their innocence and they believe they've been wrongly framed and set up, and they want to use the vehicle of my show to show how innocent they are and to get released. Well, that's not going to happen. If you watch the two shows, the last thing you think of at the end is, wow, these are poor innocent guys, and we have to release them. You're thinking, why didn't they get the death penalty?
How do you, obviously we're both interviewers. How do you go into something like this? How long did you have with a lot of these gentlemen? How much time were you allotted?
Well, you can have as long as they're prepared to give you, pretty much. So normally on average about an hour and a half, but they don't have to stay there. They're not being paid. There's no real contract. They can just get up and walk at any time. So certainly in the case of Mark Reby, he could have ended after 10 minutes. He tried to. Then you don't have a show, you haven't got an interview. So it's kind of cat and mouse. You're like a detective interviewing a criminal, trying to get to them without antagonizing them so much they stop talking. And that's a very interesting challenge for an interviewer.
Well, and that's what I wanted to know, how you kind of based that out and drew that out to make sure that they would talk, but yet they were. Did you feel like you were being lied to over and over? Did you feel like there was any truth coming out of them?
No, I thought they're both pathological liars, but very cunning and cynical liars who'd had years to perfect their lies, who knew all about every tiny aspect of their cases, particularly anything they could look at and say, look, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make sense. That's why I'm innocent. Actually, the evidence against both of them was so overwhelming that these tiny little discrepancies are meaningless. But for them, they're clinging to that to try and get released.
Did these victims' families, did they get any closure after? I mean, did you work with them at all? I mean, because, again, you hear of these criminals and you're not wanting to give them more airtime, right? I mean, it shouldn't be necessarily about them. Did you hear that this may help any of the family members of the victims?
I did, and in fact I interviewed family members for both of the shows, and the pain, even sometimes 20 years after they've lost their loved ones, was unbearable. To be in the same room as these people, just so racked with appalling horror and grief. But I think I got very nice messages back from some of them afterward. The show's aired here in Britain, first of all, thanking me for holding their feet to the fire, these disgusting people, because sometimes they don't testify. They don't ever get held to account for anything. They just sit there in sickening, smug silence. And I think that I was able to bring some comfort to those relatives. And for that, I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, we're glad to hear that. Well, again, such an honor to talk with you this morning. The new show on Oxygen. We here in America, we get our chance to watch them now. So we appreciate your time.
Great. Nice to talk to you.